Hello everybody and welcome to this week's video, which is about using pastels to paint a picture of lemon on foil. This was a request by a member of the DuPont, but I've also added a lime for a little bit of extra interest and a bit of colour. So today I'm going to be talking about how to build up your layers, when to use hard and soft pastels, and just how to achieve texture, light and shade. Pastels I'm going to be using are a variety of different makes. So I've got Senelia, I've got De Laroni, my soft ones. The hard ones are going to be W.H. Smith ones. I bought these quite a while ago and you can't get them anymore, but I do like them because they are pretty hard. So I'm going to be using the hard ones to begin with, because you always put soft pastel over hard, and I'm going to be drawing out using these and also getting the sharper marks. Whereas the bigger pastels, the softer ones, have got more pigment, but they're not so easy to get sharp angles. So I'm using a combination of both of them. The surface I'm going to be using today is a strange kind of pastel paper. It's like tracing paper and it's see-through, and I presume the idea is that you can put a different colour underneath. So I've not used this before. I'm going to start by using a red. Now, there isn't any particular red within this still life that I can see in front of me, but I think it'll add a bit of warmth. It's quite cold still life, so I think it will be interesting underneath the yellow and the green. It will also enhance the greens. So to begin, I'm going to start off drawing my lemon. And already I'm liking this paper. It's really gripping. It looks very smooth, but it's actually, I think, will take a lot of pastel. Right, so the line is smaller. And the way I'm going to approach the foil is by looking for the major shapes and the major creases. I've got one that runs down there, which wiggles around there. It can be very daunting painting or drawing foil, so you have to just simplify it and cut out the smaller wrinkles and just look for blocks of and areas of colour and tonal value to begin with. That goes that way. And then you can put in as much detail as you want to, or leave out as much as you want to. I think this is one of those that when you're doing this kind of thing, you know when you've got there, you know how much detail you need. So I think there's all these shapes going on behind the lemon. A triangle there. And then up here, it's a lot lighter. So lines coming up out of here. The problem with doing something like this is that you see a line and it looks like a solid line, and then it disappears into a highlight, and then you have lots of other lines that join onto it. So it's quite complicated to observe. This little line that goes along there and down there. I think I'll take a crease that goes over there. The other advantage of working this way, drawing out the shapes, is that you can see where you're going as you work. So you can see all the different facets. So this is quite a complicated area. I'm going to just do a few lines in here. Could even go a little bit abstract. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to work with a dark colour. I'm going to start off putting in the shadows in the very dark areas, which are going to be around the fruit and also down the front here because they're reflecting my jumper. It's a little bit like painting. I'm going dark to light. Now this is a brown and I'm kind of not sure. I'm thinking that I will try a different colour, maybe a dark green. I didn't have a dark green, but I do have a dark blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a black on first and then put the blue over. And the black, I don't want to have black in it, but it will darken the blue down. So squinting at it to get my tonal values, just go under here. Dark in there and in there, and a little bit of a dark shadow that runs down there. And this is quite dark down here. These are a little bit scratchy because they are quite cheap ones, but I like them because they are hard and they've got enough pigment in them. Harder pastels have less pigment in than the softer ones. So I'm just looking for any shapes that I see that may be dark. There's another, and as I always say, it really helps to squint to see the shapes. Right, I don't want to go too far down, so I'm going to start to work my way up. There's a green in here, but it's not that dark. I think really around the top here, I don't really see any dark areas. It's mainly just down here. So I'm going to go over that in blue, because as I say, I don't really want any black in this. And that will make kind of a dark grey. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my medium colours. So there is quite a bit of a mid-grey going on for most of this. However, there is a yellow under the lemon, there's a yellow in the grey, and as I say, there's green in here, there's green up here. So I'm going to have to be very careful with my use of grey in this because there's all different hues. So most of the cold grey is over this side where the lime is. There's lots of lovely yellow on that side, and also I can see a little bit of purple. So I've pulled out a purple pastel as well, so I'm going to use these two to start off with and then maybe introduce other colours. So within here, there's an area of colour, and over here. So I'm using the very corner of the pastel to get some sharp lines. And I'm filling in an awful lot of the green areas with the grey, but then I'll go over with green. So this area is quite yellow, so I won't go over that. I'll leave that. A very thin line that runs down there. And squinting into this, there's quite a bit of paler grey actually going on in there. So just check, and I think I have a paler grey in here somewhere. Yes, I do. So it takes a lot of concentration, this. So if I'm not talking so very much, it's because I'm doing an awful lot of observation and concentrating quite hard to figure out what shape goes where. And because the colour onto the surface of the foil is so fractured, there are so many little marks and shapes in there. Some of them are yellow, which I don't want to go over at the moment. Some are green, some are grey, some have a slight purple hint. There's so much in it. Going over up here, it's quite cool again. And I can go over a little bit this darker grey with the lighter grey to get a grey that's between the two of them. So with pastels, as those who use pastels all the time will know, you mix on the paper, you don't mix on a palette or anything like that. So it's very similar to painting. If you have an understanding of colour and building up layers and colour mixing, then you can apply it to pastels very easily. Squinting again over this side. This is very yellow, so I might put in a little bit of the dark grey and then go over it in yellow. But within this area here, there's quite a lot of linear mark making to be done. And then this is a lot darker in here. So then the facet changes and it reflects light from the window. Dark in there. And there's a lovely dark area there. This is going to be too dark in a lot of areas, but as I say, I'll be putting colours over. That could have a little bit of the blue over it actually. I don't think I'll be using any kind of blending in this. I'm going to be using the pastels to blend. I don't have a problem. Some people are quite purist and don't like to see pastel blended. I just say whatever works for you. If it works, use it. So a little bit darker within here. And there are so many shapes down here. I'm just going to abstract it out. There's a nice shadow that goes under the lemon on this side, which I will exaggerate because that will enhance the lemon when I put it on. And down here it's dark. And under here. You've got a nice little bit of light between these two. So you really get a feeling of three-dimensional effect when you put in the shadow under the lemon, then leave the light. That's much paler, that will be yellow in there. So you can see it's starting to form a kind of a metallic feel. Going in there with a bit of grey, I think. And I'm really finding it useful that I put in all the shapes to begin with, because I can see exactly where I am, otherwise I think I'd get lost. Dark in there. And over here, it's slightly more pale. There are darker areas within it, so I'm just going to abstract this area out a bit because it is very complicated. So I just want an impression of foil. And I'm still squinting because that helps me to eliminate detail and just see the basic shapes. Lots of reflected green within this area, which I really like. So I'll combine the grey, sort of a warm brown grey, with the green. I need my black. So I very often will end up with a handful of pastels. Next I'm going to start putting on my yellow. I'm still working in hard pastels, and I've got a yellow, which you can, it's a lemon yellow, of course, and my grey, my light grey, and I'll be working between the two because the yellow I see is quite cool. So within these areas there's a reflected yellow here. I'm just trying to figure out where I'm up to. Yes, the yellow goes into there. My red really has disappeared quite a bit. I might reintroduce red. There's reflected yellow within here. So I'm just blocking out big areas with the yellow. And I can see a little bit within here. This is where it gets a little bit complicated. Down there. Now I'm going over grey here, and it's cooling down the yellow because the yellow is quite cool. It's actually quite dark, that yellow, so I'm going to go in with my grey over the top of it. I'm wondering if my grey is actually a little bit pale. I'm going to try the darker grey. It might be too dark, we'll see. So I've made that quite dark, so I'll go over with the yellow. And then there's all kinds of little shapes down here, so I'm just going to make a few marks to suggest. One down there. And all around here there's an awful lot of yellow. I'll just fill that in. The yellow goes around here and up here. And then as it goes towards this side, it goes more green. So I can put in a few more H1 grey, a few more shapes that I can see within the foil. So I'm not pressing hard now because I want most of the yellow to show through. There is a dark shape there though. So you do have to try and get some nice sharp hard edges and some very sharp shapes. A bit of grey into here. And I'm just looking at this area here, and I think underneath there it's mostly white. There's a little bit of a hint of pink in there, so I might try putting in a bit of my red very lightly, and then I will go over with white probably. I'd like a little bit more red in there. This area here has an awful lot of lines. Go over that with yellow a bit. So I'm pressing quite hard. And I think the hard pastels really lend themselves more suitably to the harshness of the foil, whereas I think softer pastels will work on the fruit because it will pull out and be stronger because of the high pigment, whereas this will go back a bit, which is the foil, that is, will go back a bit, which is what I'm trying to do. That's the aim. And over here there is some reflected yellow as well, so I'm going to go up here and in with my, I think my pale grey, nope, my dark grey. And I'm going to put a little bit of the red into it. I'm not putting on thick amounts of the pastel because I don't want to saturate the paper. Not having used this before, I'm not too sure how much it will take. I do like trying out new papers and new mediums and new materials, because you never know what's going to happen. And over here it's very pale, but there is a little bit of a grey going on in there. I do think this grey is a little bit too pale, so I'm just going to go over it somewhat. And going into here it's very white, so I'm looking for any yellow up here. Nice bit of reflected yellow there, and over here, also in here. It's worthwhile just working with one colour at a time because then you don't lose yourself. So reflected yellow in here as well. There's all kinds of colours in here, there's bits of green and grey and everything. So I'm just going to put a few sharp edges in. And going over to this, yes, that's very pale. And reflected yellow over here. And I'll put some in here. I'm observing quite closely, but at the same time I am using a bit of artistic license to make up a few shapes as well. Slight yellowness in here, not much though. And looking around this area, there's just a little bit in here. And a little bit more over here. And also within that line there. And the edge of that bit there. Okay, so I think that's all the yellow I need for the moment. So I'll just, the way I work is I keep the pastels I'm using on one side so I can just get them when I need them. And I'm going to start working with green now. Okay, so I've got a lime pale green, I've got a darker viridian green, and I've got a black. And I'm going to use these three. So first of all, I'm going to go into the larger areas, and this area you get an awful lot of this vivid green. I'm going over the grey that I've got, it's already on there. And there's quite a dark green going on in here. So what I'm going to do, because I don't have a dark green, with pastels the colours don't tend to be too dark, I'm putting on a black, and then I'll go over with my viridian green and then the lime green, and it should mix to what I'm hoping will be the right colour. Bit of black there, and then going over with my viridian in this area here. And then putting in my lime, putting it on top. And as you can see, you get quite a nice mid-green doing that. and the black does disappear. And while I'm working, I'm putting on a few sharp lines with the corner to get the feel of the metal. I've got a lime green that runs down here. I think I've left that a little bit too big, so I'm going to chop into that. No, I don't want my black, I'm going to use my dark grey. And there's another line runs down here. And then going down to this, it's mostly pale colour. There is a lot of green within this area though. So once again, I'm going to go in with my Viridian first, and then put on my pale green on top. Now that goes very, very dark inside there, so I'm going to go over with this dark grey. Might even go over with black actually, because it goes a lot darker. Then over with my Viridian. And then my lime green. I don't really want the Viridian to show up because it's the wrong green. I'm just using it to darken underneath the pale. So going down to here, there's a little bit of the green that I can see reflected in there. And especially within here. And then you've got various greys going on here. I'm going to go over that grey with a bit of pale. So more green down here. So I'll put my Viridian in. And I can definitely see a hint of green down here. Quite interesting because there's lots of little angles that are facing the line, so you're getting an awful lot of tiny little shapes, which I'm going to abstract out. And within here, obviously, there's going to be a reflected green. I'm going to go in with the Viridian over this line. And there's so many different small shapes going on here. Quite a few dark ones. I'm going to put black in. Over with the Viridian. And then I'll put my lime green on. It's not actually quite the right colour, it's a little bit loud. I don't seem to have a sap green, so I'm improvising. I could use a warmer yellow into this mix and I'd get more of a sap green, or I could put a little bit of red into it. And that will make it more sappy. Just making a few more shapes to suggest all the wrinkles in the foil. And down there. So it's what's happening actually is I feel like this side is warmer than that side, so I'm not sure. I could put red in because that will enhance the green, but I quite like the idea of cooler that side, warmer that side, just for the fun of it. So I could go in with my blue a little bit on this side to put in some of the shapes. So that's just a little idea for the contrast. A little bit of a paler grey within there. Like that. And looking up here, because I haven't worked this much, I'm going to put in a bit more grey. And within here there's a paler grey as well. It goes very pale as you go off towards this side. And I think a little bit more yellow around here. There are so many different colours going on here. I'm going to put more red in as well to describe the form a little bit. A few red lines. This is a very hard pastel, so I'm finding it quite useful to get a little bit of a harder edge. The yellow I've got is a bit softer. There's a little bit more of a shadow underneath the lemon than I've got. I'm just going to blend a little bit using my red pastel, so I get a little bit of red into this yellow and a little bit of shadow. It's quite dark under there, so I'll take my dark grey, I think, and put some shadow under just where the lemon touches the foil. And also I think underneath the lime, because that will make the lime stand out. There's also a few wrinkles at the back. I've actually made this very small and it's bigger from my eye level, so I won't be able to fit in all the light that I can see. So down here, I think I'm going to introduce my pale grey to get a few shapes going. So what I'm going to do is work a few more details now, so I'll turn this into speed painting so I can concentrate and not talk, and you can see how it will develop. And then I'll put the highlights on and then I'll start to work the fruit. Now I'm going to be using white. This is still a hard pastel. I've got a very lovely soft white one, which is a Senalia one, which has very, very strong pigment, and I'll be using that to put the very sharp lights on, maybe at the end. So for now, any areas that I see that are pale and white, I'm just going to put this on. And I'll go back to speed painting again. Okay, so now I'm reasonably happy with my foil. I think what I will do is sharpen areas after I've done the fruit, and also put in strong highlights. I might use a torsion. I'll see how I get on. So going over to the fruit, I'm going to start, I think, with the lemon because it's behind the lime. So I've got to get a variety of different yellows. There's some orange yellow in there. There's a lemon yellow. Lots of different cooler yellows, warmer yellows, so I'm going to have to be very observant with my colours. I'm going to mainly use, I've lost it, my bright yellow, lemon yellow. However, I do have a warmer yellow, which is more of a cadmium yellow deep, so I might put some of that in. I'm going to use red to put my shadows in, but over on this side, there's reflected green from here, so I'll probably put green in there as a shadow before I put the yellow on top. So over on this side, the lemon is not quite so obvious against the foil. However, there is a reflected light from the foil on the edge. So what I might do is use a pale line down there to bring it forward. But to begin with, I'm just going to put in my shadow colour, which goes over here. So there's lots of texture in this. So I'll try and emulate that. And as usual, I squint to see my colours a little bit more clearly and my shadow shapes. A bit of shadow under there. Actually, the light, because it's coming from this side, from the window, is hitting this, so this is going to be quite bright against the foil. And over on this side, I'm thinking that I'm going to put in a bit of Viridian. And that shadow runs right the way down to the bottom of the lemon and goes over to the back edge of it. And then I'm going to put a red over it, and that will dirty it down a little bit, make it a bit muddy. And I think I'll put a bit more red around here. And I think a little bit more of a suggestion of shadow here. And it's probably as much as I need at the moment. So I'm going to take my lemon yellow and start filling in and going over these. Getting a nice orange actually. Right over the red. Still using my hard pastels actually. And into here. think what I'm going to do is, after I've done this, I'm going to put a bit of orange into here. My lemon's a funny shape at the moment, so I'm going to have to correct that. I think it's too flat here, so I will use a pale yellow to change that. So here comes my green reflected shadow, paler over here. And I've got reflected light under there. So I'm pressing quite hard. When I was doing the white over the foil, I was pressing quite hard as well. That's a really terrible shaped lemon. How did it end up like that? To correct it. So going over all these. And that might be a little bit too fiery on that side of the lemon. So I'm going to fatten this out a bit. That's a bit better. So to get a bit of texture, I just wiggle in small circles my pastel, and it does give you a nice little bit of texture going on there. I think that's a bit too fiery, so I think I'm going to have to slightly cool that down. And I'm going to squint a bit, and there's some textural effect around here. So I'm going to use the green and the red all the way through, I think, with this. I think with this I'm going to start using my soft pastels. So I've got my soft pastels now, and it's quite amazing how they cover over the hard pastels, and also the pigment is so strong. I'm going to start with this one because it's slightly darker than this one, and see how it looks. This will go on the warmer side of the lemon, and you can see how it covers. I barely have to press, but I want to keep the texture. So I'm not pressing too hard, and I'm also doing the small circular movements. And there's a highlight just here. And using, I think maybe using my paler pastel, I'm going to highlight the edge just around there of the lemon. And also it's very, very pale over the top here. Very long lemon. So then this area here is, I think I'll probably go back to my harder pastel, because this area here is more of an orange yellow. Work into my hard pastel, a soft pastel a little bit. However, you can't really use a hard pastel over a soft pastel, it just doesn't work. So once you start putting on the thick pastel, the soft pastel, you can't really go back to using the hard. So there is a lot of reflected light underneath it as well, coming from the foil. Goes right the way under there. And then there's quite a strong line down there. And then over this side, it's also got a strong light hitting it from the window. I'm going to go in with my warmer pastel a bit into that, because it's ending up a little bit too pale. I'm finding actually this is slightly harder than this, so this is not making any impression over the top of this. So looking in my yellow box, I need to try and find something that's a little bit, oh that's a white, I'll keep hold of that, a little bit softer to go in with my mid colour. I've got a yellow ochre. There's a little bit of ochre on this side, not much though. And I'm going to put a little bit of red into here, I think, and then the dark brown will go on top of that. So I'm squinting again and looking at the shape underneath, and I think I need to tidy that up a little bit. I'm going to use the hard pastel. And I'm going to go with my very pale one again over here. It gets a little bit darker on the other side of on this shadow on the other side of the line. So where it's very dark, I'm going to go in much darker with the red, and then go over it with the green. And I think actually I might use a little bit of black in there. I think that's a dark grey. So this is where you start to find that you lose your colours. Well, maybe I've got a dark, no, I won't use that. Lost my black. Well, I think what I'll do is I will then use, what's this one? This is a dark grey. That's not dark enough. I could use this blue actually. There's a little bit of blue on the whole thing. Oh, that works. Bit of red in there. And then I'll go over that with a little bit of the hard yellow. Might have to go in a little bit darker with that eventually. I found my black, it was hidden, so I'm just going to put some of that on where the stem would have been on the lemon. And I'm going to go over it with a bit of red. Quite dark. And then in the middle it's got a little bit of a pale area. Like that. Around here there are a few little shadow shapes. I'm just going to work those in with the red. Now I've lost my lemon a bit against the foil, but there is quite a strong highlight under there, so I'm just going to put that in using my big fat pastel as a bit of reflected light, like that, so it comes forward a little bit. And to take away that line a bit over there. And then over here you've got quite a highlight, which I will put in later. So I'm going to move on to my green. There's a reflected yellow within the green, so I'm going to put some of that on. There's a yellow area here. And so I'm going to put on quite a few light areas that I can see and then go over with the dark green. And down here it's reflected off the foil, so it's a bit of a cooler green. So putting on my Viridian. So this is a hard pastel again. And I'll put a little bit of red into this to make it a bit more sap coloured. And I'm going to go over with my pale green over the yellow. Just where I can see the light hitting it. It's very light along this edge. And it's quite dark against the foil on the other side, so I'm going to put in some red before I put in some green. There is quite a strong line that runs around there, like that, and it goes up, oops, here, and going in dark there. I'm going to search in my soft pastels in a minute to see if I can find a nice sap green that I can go over this with. I'm still allowing the yellow to stay. So there is a strange little line that runs across there like that, and also one up there. Now I'm going to go over with my Viridian green over that line. Actually not doing that very well, it's gone over the edge, but it's quite nice and sharp against the light in there, and I will make that light stronger. So I'm starting to sit back a little bit and have a look at it and think about the tonal values and what I have to bring forward and what needs highlighting. And I think my lemon's coming along quite well. I think they're standing out against the foil, and the foil has gone back a little bit. More yellow in there than into my softer pastel here. I might regret that. Might be too soon. It's a real temptation to go in really strongly with all the lovely soft pastels, but I much prefer to build up slowly and then at the end put in the lighter, brighter colours or stronger colours. So I'm going over this with a little bit of the hard white. Oh dear, that's dirty. So now I've lost my yellow. So back in with the yellow. And I'm pressing a bit harder so it comes back again. And then back in with the white on top of that. I'll just clean it off on the side of my paper. And so at the moment what is happening is every artist's nightmare, the light is starting to go. And that's why artists prefer summer, or I do anyway as an artist, because winter's a nightmare with the lack of light. So I'm going to have to speed up a little bit. And I think I'll put in a bit of black into my shadow under here. What I find when I put the light on, even if it's a daylight bulb, is I come to it in the morning and I'm just really never happy with what I've done in the dark hours, because the light is never the same. So I think what I'll do is I'll put in a bit more yellow into the lime over here, taking my hard pastel. Using hard pastels to build up layers is a lot more subtle than using the soft ones. I sound like I'm a soft pastel critic, but I really like the soft ones, but I like to blast those in at the end. Like that. And within here, I'm going to put a little bit of red because that will enhance the green. And it's a little bit pale in the inside there. Just shrink that a bit. And put in some pale green on top of that. And a bit of dark green, I think, over there. That hasn't worked very well, so I'll have to keep working on that. So now I'm going to look for a sap green within my greens. And as you can see, I've got a few different varieties. So, ooh, that's very dirty. That's this one. No, that's too cool. I want something a bit warm. That's way too sappy. That's very dark. That might suit in there, actually. I'll put that down there. See what else? No. Oh, actually, that might suit to go over on this area. Yeah, I think that works quite well. So I'm going over very, very gently, because I only want to give a little change to the colour. I don't want it to overwhelm it. These can be really strong and powerful. If I go down here, you can see how powerful they can be. Yeah, so I need to work that a little bit. So I'm going to find my white. Now I've got a lot of pastels on the surface, so finding the one I want a bit more tricky, especially because they're all dirty, so they all look the same. I think that will do. Right, I really like the depth of colour in there, so I think I used black and red. So I'm going to put black in here, just here under the lemon, which will pull it forward a bit, and then put the red in on top. to get rid of that dead black. And also there's quite sharp colour going on there and there. So now I can start refining. I'm going to get a pale yellow and just put in a little bit of highlight here. So I can see the pores in the rind. So I'm just dotting. So anyone who saw my video last week on pointillism might enjoy this bit of dotting. It comes in useful. Sometimes if I get too strong a mark and I want to get rid of it a little bit, I'll just tap it with my finger and it disappears a bit. And a slight edge here. And I'm going to just put a little bit of a sharp highlight in here and then echo that in this here. So basically what I need now is to sharpen up my shapes in my foil a little bit more. So I'm going to do that tonally. Bit of black in here and just put some angular lines in it. And try to hurry up a bit because the light is definitely fading here. And up here there is actually a darker area just going off there. So I'm only pressing very gently with my black because I don't want hefty black in this. I just want a kind of a depth of colour a little bit. So down here there's a line that goes into the line. And over here. So this is kind of the finalising of the piece. Just sharpening little areas to make it look a little bit more like metal. And I'm really looking forward to putting on the lightest areas in the foil, because I think that will really enhance it. I think my lime is going to have to stay as it is. It's not quite finished really. I would like to work that a little bit longer, but light is disappearing. I think it needs to be stronger between the two, so I'm actually going to be brave and going with black. And red on top. So that automatically, I think I'm going to go a little bit wider with that shadow. That makes it look more three-dimensional automatically. That's it. And more red. And then I'm going to put some green in because obviously it's going to have to reflect the lime. So, right, which green? Not that one. Now I've lost my Viridian. Oh, I see it underneath my board. So leave that in there. I'm already losing my darker area again. Let's have a look down here. Ah, that was a bit of an accident, but I like that. I'm going to leave that in. So squinting up here, I think my lemon is a little bit darker than the foil behind. And I need to bring the foil down a little bit because it's It's not sharp enough. I might actually just put a little bit of a highlight on there with my soft pastel. I think that will bring it forward a bit more. But I do need to, but I've ended up with a line all the way around, so I do need to break that up a little bit. So I'm going to put in a bit of red into there. It is disappearing into the foil. I'll have to think about that. I might put a white bit of brightness behind it. It is a bit of a funny shape. Never mind. So now I'm going to work with my highlights and my white and see what happens. So here's my white. It's a Senelia and it's absolutely lovely. If I just do a line down here, you can see how powerful and strong that is. So the only downside of this is it's so crumbly, it's really hard to get a sharp edge. So I'm going to start in the middle with my light that comes round in between the fruit. As you can see, look at that, that's really beautiful. And if I go over, which I've done with the line, I can just almost sculpt it back off the shape. So, right, squinting at the whole thing, I can see a little bit of light. It's really hard to find a sharp edge. A little bit of light just in here, there, and there's not too much light in this area because it's mostly shadow, but I get the light over here. I'm trying not to get too strong a white all over because it will flatten it, but I do want to lighten areas and have little shines going on. And this is the marvellous thing about doing reflections in anything, be it a metal teapot to jewellery, anything like that. When you have your contrast, your light and your dark together, it really does have an impact. So in there, and see now there's another line in there. And as you can see, I'm starting to get a feel of a little bit of glitter and shine going on here. I'm going to add a little bit down there. And also on this side, the line is hiding the light a little bit. But then the light's coming from this side, so I think it's the angle. So I don't want to make this too bright, but I'd like to have it a little bit lighter and sharper in there. And here. And this area is very pale. Oops. Yeah, it's really hard to be accurate when you're using your when you're using your softer pastels, because they are so lumpy. So they're starting to pop out a little bit more, and as I said, what I'll try and do is put some pale behind the lemon so it stands out a bit more. Yes, I think that works. Line down there. And I feel it's starting to glow a little bit, so being very careful with the light. Window, and along here there's some very thin, strong lines. Like that. And then within here. So just building up. This is my favourite bit, and I'm a big fan of doing reflective surfaces, because what happens is when you put your highlights on at the end, it just pings out of the page. It's great. So just looking at this shape here, and there really isn't much in the way of light in there, but I'm going to put a little bit of red in there. Yeah, I think that works quite well. So I'm going to redden up this area quite a bit. And in here, and it's just creating a bit of warmth. A little bit sharper around here. I think I'm going to put more white in here as well. I'm still getting some of the grey of the this kind of tracing paper. So I would be interested to find out if I put another colour underneath it, if it would change it. I think I'll do that at the end, and just to see. I've got some blue, so I think I'll use that. So down here you get a lot more light, but I don't want too much contrast down here because this is the area of the focal point. So I really want the light and the contrast around the fruit, yeah, rather than going off down here. So I'll just put a few highlights just to make sure it looks like metal. I could, if I want to, have a line that runs down like that, and that points up to the focal area. And I'm going to just put a few little dots of highlight like that. Might be a bit too much, I'll take that out. Yes, that's better. I think I might put a little bit of white in here to reflect from the foil. So a bit of artistic license going on as well, with reflected colour and reflected light. Going up here, it's very light actually. I'm going to go over this grey, and that's going to go down there a little bit. I'm going to have a strong line there. This is the bit I like the most, so I don't want to overkill it. I don't like that shape, it's a bit awkward. I'll take it out. I'll make that an angle. Yeah, I'm not keen on that. So what I would do, I think, is take my grey and just cut that out a bit. That's better. And it's this I don't like. I'm going to take that out as well. That's a bit better. I think what it is it needs a little bit more yellow in there. And I'll take some of the warmth out with a bit of the cooler yellow here. Yeah, that works. That doesn't quite work, but anyway, I will leave it for now. If I had more time with light on my side, I would work that a little bit more. And there's a few light lines in here. I don't really want to overkill. And lighten that a bit. Still need to do something with that, I think. I'm going to use the red again. And maybe a little bit of the black, which is not warped. That's good. So black. Actually, this is grey. That's why it's not working. My black's warped again. I'm looking at it. What I'm going to do is put in a little bit more white within here. That's a bit better. Bit of white on here. Just a few dots. I'm really pleased with this tracing paper that I have, or not tracing paper, pastel tracing paper. It just seems to work really well. Just put layer on it, and it's still taking it. So a little bit more here, I think, and then I think that'll do. I always do this, I always say a little bit more and then that works. So I think this is quite nice actually. I'm going to put a little bit of reflected light in here, and then just have some strong white lines going in. So what that does is it leads the eye into the fruit. I think I can take a little bit more white down past the line a bit more. Oh, my black's turned up. I can't remember what I was going to use it for. Anyway, I'm going to make this line darker against the light just here. So I'm actually doing it as dark as it is with the light as it is at the moment, and I think that makes it a little bit three-dimensional. Bit of iridium over it. And maybe a little bit of red into that, which will make the green stand out a bit more. Just a little bit over this side. It's actually going brown, never mind. And drag that black in under there a little bit. Now looking at this, I think it doesn't follow, so I'm going to lower that a little bit. And put in over that some yellow. That's it. Not happy with this area, so this is definitely the last bit, I think. I'm going to change the foil behind. And then I'm going to use just a little line of green, red, sorry. I think that needs a little bit more work, but I can barely see now because the light is so dark. Right, I think that's enough. Reasonably happy with it. Probably could work this shape a little bit better and maybe rearrange the shape of the back of the lemon. But yeah, I think I've done what I wanted to do, which is I've hopefully captured the metallic feel of the foil and also the reflected colour that goes into it. So I hope you found that interesting. It's a very simple still life to do and a lot of fun, just the way it builds up from just small lines and shapes into becoming something three-dimensional. So that's it for this week. Hope you enjoy it. Bye.